interest
Okay,
of
Joe.
time, I don't want to make sure everybody's getting out timely, so did you?
I'm only on my phone to figure out how much,
Okay,
yeah.
that is fine. And we'll give you, what I'm going to do, actually, I do have some slides here, and I believe my husband is recording, thank you.
It's up and running.
And we finally figured out this whole thing, we managed to get the debt video up on Vimeo, so we can share, I mean, you've already been there a whole lot, you've seen it, you were live. But for people, I think we might just share the link right on Facebook itself under the journey page and just kind of say, hey, you heard today's sermon. If you want to learn more about how to use the form that got handed out in the sermon and what to do, watch the video. It actually ended up only being 40 minutes. But I just have a few slides about just a little bit about budgeting. And then what I'm going to do, really spend most of my time, is going over how to use this particular form, but then also how to use an app called Every Dollar. So just to give you different options, because the best budget is one that you're going to use. So everybody's different as to what works best for them. So we'll go through a couple different options. So start off, and we went over this a little bit in the debt workshop, for those of you that were there. First thing is, what is a budget? Well, it's an intentional plan on how you're going to use your income for the coming month. So it's about being intentional and telling where your money's going to go. And we looked at this equation last week. The definition of a zero-based budget is when your monthly income minus your monthly expenses equals zero. And when we go through the demonstration, we'll show you how you can kind of do that. And really, the budget is a tool. It is your tool for getting out of debt, staying out of debt, giving, saving, and really just living like no one else. As we heard in the sermon this morning, this is kind of countercultural to our world today. Most people don't really budget. I had somebody tell me that, I like that idea in concept. Okay, why don't you put it to practice? Because it really does help be able to be intentional about your spending and how you're using your money. So let's go through the steps. So what's the steps of creating a budget and maintaining a budget? First, it should be written. You want a written monthly budget. You don't try to keep it in your head. I don't keep anything in my head anymore. I write everything down because I know it'll get lost up there. So the idea is you want a written and you want a monthly budget. Next is you want to track your spending throughout the month, so then that way at the end of the month you can kind of see what you spent with what you budgeted and see how you did, and then create a new monthly budget. So the first couple budgets sometimes take a little bit of practice, because really your first budget is a guess, because you probably haven't been tracking your spending, so you don't really know in some categories what it is, so you just kind of do your best guess. And then as you track it, you'll be able to refine it. And really by the third month, it's ingrained. It is practice. As Patrick mentioned before clicking play, we're both engineers, we're both very analytical, we both sit down and we analyze our budget once a month. It takes us an hour. That is not normal. Most normal people, if you're sitting down as a couple going over your budget, good 30 minutes, you could say, oh yeah, we spent this much, we're good, and we're going to do this next budget, and we'll go on from there. But
Does that include argument time?
does that include? One thing that's really nice is when
argument is discussing.
it's discussing, and it is discussing. I agree.
But it's just tense.
One thing that I noticed is once we kind of started getting into this rhythm and this plan, we really did not argue. We were discussing, and I tend to be the more administrative one of the group, so even to the point where throughout the month, Patrick will say, okay, write this down, we need to discuss this at our budget meeting on how we're going to pay for it. Okay. So it really made things a lot more proactive and made it more of a discussion because you're planning it together and it's not an argument. So that's a good point, though. Different personalities. Okay, so how do you document? I handed out, this is actually a form from a class that I've taught in the past called Freed Up Financial Living, which is sponsored by the Willow Creek Association. It's also in Excel, so written meaning you can use this form and just do pen and paper. You can even just use a notebook, a spiral bound notebook, if you like, and do a budget that way. I know a lot of people who do that. You can use a spreadsheet. This is in spreadsheet form that I could send out to everybody. And then there's some phone apps out there that are really helpful. And I'm going to go through every dollar today. That is one that is sponsored by Dave Ramsey. It is a free app, although they do have a paid version that basically links with your checking account if you'd want to use that version. And it basically just allows for less typing. But that's $9.99 a month. In my mind, it's just not worth $10 a month to do that. I'll just type it out. There's another one called You Need a Budget, and you often see it abbreviated YNAB. That is paid. That's $6.99 per month. They're both very, very similar, but these are the two most popular ones. The whole idea when you document your budget, like I mentioned before, is do something that's going to stick, that you know that you're going to do from month to month. And then, didn't go forward. So then track your spending. A few weeks ago, I guess it was the first session of Michael's series there, he did give out a form that was just a simple piece of paper that did date and what you spent. The key is when you're tracking it, since you have budgets that have categories, somehow just kind of write down what that category is and how much is remaining in that category. That way you're proactive and keeping, not only keeping track of your spending, but you're proactive in saying, how does this impact our budget? And that's what kind of makes the budget meeting once a month a little bit more efficient, is how efficient you track your spending and how much work you have to kind of reconcile that at the end. So again, pen and paper is fine. And actually I think my next slide, I'm just gonna sit. The apps, the beauty of that is it'll do both. It'll track your spending as well as manage your budget. So that's one thing that's really nice. I've seen some people with a little spiral bound notebook that they can keep in their purse or in their pocket, and each page is a category, so you just kind of keep a running total. Spreadsheet. We use personal finance software called MoneyDance. We like that because you can also, it's basically my electronic check register, so it serves two purposes. One, it kind of keeps track of our spending, but two, we use that to reconcile our checkbook every month as well. It's similar to Quicken. When Quicken crashed, we bought MoneyDance because it was cheaper. And it seems to work pretty well. And it has an app on my phone. So if I'm getting gas, and I can kind of record I got gas, and it kind of keeps track of everything as we go. The other way, it's kind of a way of keeping track, is envelopes. Is everybody familiar with the envelope system? Something our grandparents used to do quite a bit. You can use real envelopes where you just write on the envelope, this is my grocery money, this is my entertainment money. This is our envelopes. This is what we use. It's basically a coupon holder that has little, and we just write on the tab which envelope it is. Envelopes are really good for those categories that you have a tendency to overspend on, because it's very personal when you actually give over cash. It's very, and when that envelope is empty, it's empty. There's nothing left. So this is one way we do it. Another way we do it is, and this is, I think, popular with the ladies, you know, the clip system, they call it. Yeah. And I have these, when we're doing, like Saturdays, we run and do a whole bunch of errands, so I just throw this in my purse just like that to go. If I know, like on the way home, I need to stop at the grocery store, or I'm going someplace out and I want a much smaller purse, you can basically clip that. And these, I actually put a little piece of duct tape, so this is G for my groceries and this is C for clothing. And just kind of clip it, and then you can stick it in your wallet, and that way you know what the money's for. I've also seen where they use different colored clips, and each color represents that. I would never remember what color I want. So I put, I just put a little duct tape and used a fine point Sharpie to write what was on there. So that's just another way to track, because if you set aside, I mean, the easy thing with that is if you set aside, I mean, I'll give you, we set aside $630 a month for groceries. That's a lot for 2 people. But we also use our grocery money for like the paper products and hair care, so it's kind of a combined. But, you know, at the end of the month, we'll just look, how much money's left in groceries? Oh, nothing, we spent the full amount. You know, so we kind of get an idea of how much we spend and we can adjust there. Usually in February, we increase it a little bit because we do a pretty big meal for Valentine's Day, that type of thing. So those are just different ways to track your spending. Are there any questions on those methods before I kind of dive into the demonstration, my big question slide? I'm going to get out of this. All right. Oh, good. So this is the form I sent out to everybody, and just wanted to walk through, and these are all just made up numbers that, just to make math easy actually, of how to fill out your budget. Is there anybody here that's kind of on a regular income that maybe works on commission or something like that? Not really. The big thing, if you are in a situation where you can do that, the way I'm going to show you how to do your budget is actually very similar to a regular income, where you kind of focus on, they call it the 4 walls, your 4 necessities first. And also start as far as your income, the base amount that you feel pretty confident you're going to get. So let's say, you know, I know at a minimum we get $2,000 or something ridiculous. You kind of start there. And then if you get more income, you can add that to the income side and then add to the categories from there. So it's very similar. But in this example, I'm going to start by putting in our salary, and I'm just going to use $3,500 as our net salary. And what's nice about this form is it does, when you do it in Excel, is they do have some formulas in there to help along with it, but it's also a form that's very easy to do by hand as well. And then usually what we do is right off the bat, we'll go to number 1 and actually do the giving, and we'll take 10% off the top before we figure out what's left to use in the other categories. So I'm just going to put 150 in here to show that we're taking 10%. And you can see it does do that calculation, so you can kind of see how much you are giving and set goals as to how to get to a certain percentage if that's one of the goals you want to get towards. Now I'm going to skip down to, like I said, to the necessities first. And I have them marked out here with the little asterisks just to kind of show that they are the 4 walls. 4 walls being your housing, so you need shelter. Transportation, particularly around here, you need some form of transportation to get to your jobs. Even if it's a bike, you need something. So transportation, and then groceries, so you need food and clothing. Can't be running around naked, so you need some sort of way to clothe yourself. So we're going to start with those categories, and I'm just going to put some numbers in there that are reasonable for this area. So mortgage, I'm just going to put in $1,000, and make sure I put my little cheat sheet. There we go. And then I'm going to put in our bills. So electricity, telephone, and I'm going to put in cable. Just to have it in there. Now with things like electricity and gas, some of the utilities, you know, it does vary a little bit from month to month. When you're doing your first budget, you can just refer back to whatever the last bill was. Good practice, though, is to kind of look at, 3, 6 months, okay, over the past 6 months, what was the average? Or over the past year, what was the average, depending on what kind of information you have. It doesn't hurt. Year is probably too much for electricity, particularly if you're heating with that, because that's going to vary, and you may bump that up in the winter when you're using electric heat all the time versus the other time of year. But you can make that an average so that way you don't have to change it every single month. And you know that you're gonna roll some money over from month to month to pay that. So that's a good practice when you're doing bills like that. And same with gas, so kind of get an average of, how much gas are we spending? If you're doing parking downtown, or using the bus system, you can kind of put, what is my monthly bus pass, that could be part of it. Oil, lube, and maintenance, at a minimum, you're gonna probably get oil changes on your vehicle, so figure out, what is that, well, every 3 months, that's about $30, so I'll at least put $10 a month aside to pay for my, for the basic maintenance of oil change, so we'll put that in there. I'm gonna scroll up here. And I'm gonna put in auto insurance, even though I don't have that starred. You kind of need to insure your car if that's your mode of transportation. So for now, I'm just gonna put in auto insurance. And I don't know, our auto insurance, it actually pulls out of our checking account, I think twice a year. So what we did is when they send a statement at the beginning of the year and say your auto insurance is X amount of dollars, we divide it by 12 and that's what we put in our budget. So that way we know it's in the checking account when that bill comes and we don't get overdrawn. So we know it's just going to be there. It's kind of an automatic thing. And when we get the new statement, we just look at it again and make the adjustment. Groceries, I'm going to put $500 in here. I actually think $500 for a family of 4, unless you have teenage boys, is probably pretty, is reasonable. I mean, groceries, they're expensive, and if you want to eat healthy, I think that is a pretty reasonable amount. Like I said, each teenage boy, I think you kind of have to count twice, maybe even 3 times in order to keep them fed. Girls aren't quite as bad, although I know when I was a teenager, I consumed a lot of food. But I also grew 6 inches in 1 year. I think that was part of it. So, but anyway. Clothes, they wear out at a minimum. Probably want to at least have enough money in there to kind of replace your underwear and socks, right? So a good kind of minimum, and actually for a while before Patrick went back to work, our clothing budget every month was only $50. We've since upped that to $100 just because and he does computer repair for Carillion, and he seems to go through pants pretty quickly, so that helps make sure he can have pants that don't have holes in it. But I'm just going to put $50 in here for now. Gifts. Now is a good time of year to be doing a budget. You can kind of look at what in the world did I spend at Christmas, because that's probably your biggest gift buying season. But also think about your birthdays along the way, and you can. Can even be like just a separate little initial list of, okay, who do I buy for birthdays? What do I normally spend at Christmas? Okay, so that's, I'm just going to throw a number. That's $600. Divide by 12. All right, well, we'll say $50 a month, and then that way I know I have money in my checking account, or if you decide to make that a cash envelope item, you can do that as well. But either way, you have the money available and that you don't have to go into debt for Christmas or for any type of gifts. Okay, so that is the basic 4 walls to start. And then with there, this has the math in it. We'll scroll down. It shows us our income there. And so far, our expenses are $2,635. So, which means we have $865 left, right? Right. So now we know we have money left over that we can go back to the other categories and start filling them in. And I'm just going to start at the top, and I'm going to go through kind of an exercise first, as if we don't have debt, of what this might look like. And then we'll play around with, if we have debt, how that impacts our budget. So right off the bat, first I want to start save. And what's nice is they do give you a little bit of guide here. Michael Gates mentioned that they try to save, and he's saving right now for retirement about 15% a month of his income a month. There's different types of savings. Probably your first step is you should try to save for an emergency fund. And the rule of thumb there is a 3 to 6 months of expenses. So we know that we have about $2,600 in expenses. So if you multiply that by 3 for a 3-month emergency fund, that's about $8,000. So, for this particular example, the minimum emergency fund you'd want on hand is $8,000. Now, what's nice is $8,000 actually could buy you a pretty nice car if it blows up and you want to, use all your emergency fund to do that. But either way, and I'm going to just say 10% for right now, put aside for emergency fund. And for this particular example, if we put just 10% of our income aside at $350 a month, you can have that emergency fund fully funded in less than 2 years, which really is not that, not that long. Sounds like a long time, but if you think about it, a year goes by pretty fast. At least it does for me. So we're going to put $350 into savings. And then we're just going to scroll down and kind of fill in our other categories. And as we kind of talked about earlier, there's a lot of others here. There's a lot of things that you can kind of fill in with something else based on what you have. So we have that covered. I'm going to assume for this example that any kind of other insurance is taken out of your income. Next week we're going to have Carla Jean Marks and Heather Etheridge come and talk to us about insurance, and that'll help us learn a little bit more about what necessary insurance is. You may have a little extra taken out for life insurance. You may have to pay extra for medical or dental. Usually those are things that are taken out of your income, or at least medical and dental are. So we're going to skip those. Personal. So there's a line for household items. I'm going to skip this one. This would be things, a lot of times these categories, it's really defined how you want to define them. So we have probably quite a bit of household items that are covered under groceries. We kind of look at our household items, we actually call it house and garden. It's what we buy at Lowe's. It goes into our house and garden category versus what we buy at Kroger is in our grocery category. So sometimes some overlap, particularly if you do a lot of shopping at Sam's, that could cover multiple categories. And when we get to every dollar, we'll show you how you can cover that. But either way, I'm going to skip that one for now and just assume it's covered under groceries. I'm going to say for barber and beauty, that set aside $40 a month to, hair cut, wash, whatever you do, color. And I'm going to we have a column here called allowances. Oops. My husband and I give each other an allowance. We basically say this is your free money that you can spend on whatever you want. And it's pretty, I think, fairly modest. We figure on, for each of us, $20 a week, which is $100 a month. That's what we use for if we want to go to Starbucks and get a coffee, if we want to go out to eat at lunch, if we want to fund our hobbies, which for me is going to Michael's, for him is going to Woodcraft, that type of thing comes out of that. So I'm just going to put 100, we'll assume this is just one person. Just touch screen, and put $100 in there. All right, so before I go on to entertainment, I just want to make sure that I haven't gone negative, and I haven't. I still have $375 left, so that's good. We're being good here. We're good stewards of our money. Going out, meals, movies, we kind of categorized entertainment as one lump sum, so we didn't really break it apart, but they have it broken apart here. I'm going to just put $100 in here for meals and going out to eat, $30 for movies and events. If you're saving for a particular vacation or trip, this is a good place to set money aside for that, if you want to do it here. And also there's separate items here for hobbies and other things as well, and of course in other. Professional services, so if you have things for childcare, they have an item, so up there that was actually your insurance payment, medical, dental, here would be more if what you're paying out of pocket, if you need to pay things out of pocket. And then here's our miscellaneous category. It's a little bit hidden at the bottom. And they say a guide of 2 to 3%. This Rachel had mentioned school pictures. It would be, we use it for the 2 or 3 times a year we have to buy stamps for whatever reason. Or we use it and go to Goodwill and buy little stuffed toys for our dog for 50 cents that he promptly rips apart. We don't feel guilty that, in 2 days it's totally destroyed and all over our house because we only paid 50 cents for it and it came out of miscellaneous. It's kind of like blow money. So it's always good to have a little bit of that because you never know, what other little things in your budget that you're categorized. Good starting point is $50. When we started this, we've actually been doing kind of this program as far as having a written budget, meeting once a month for 10 years. So we set that at $50 when we started it, and we've never really had to change that. That seems to be adequate for our household to do that. So I'm going to put 50 here.
I'm wondering how they get childcare at 5% of their budget.
Yeah, I'm thinking that 5% is in the other category when you don't have a child, because I know that can get pretty pricey. So we've kind of gone through and we say, oh look, I have $195 left. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, well, my first goal that I've set in using this budget is I want to save my emergency fund. So I'm going to take that $195 and I'm going to add it to, where is it, my emergency fund here, and I'm going to use the power of Excel and not do it in my head. I think I said that was $195, right? So it's $554. Yeah. So now we have a balanced budget. And what's nice in doing that, and again, the power of the budget, is now just by adding that extra money that I found that I actually do have available, that actually allows me to save my emergency fund in 14 months now instead of 2 years. So now I've been able to go a little bit further. So that's kind of my first walkthrough of putting together a budget. Is there any questions on how I did that, or what are scenarios?
On your end, I'm just thinking this out loud. On the emergency fund, you said you figure out what that amount is for the, what'd you say, 3 to 6 months? Or?
Yeah, 3 to 6 months, and that's very personal. So, and what I did, and the way I did this budget is a good way to kind of figure out what that goal is, if that's your first goal, is I kind of, like I said, I concentrated on the 4 walls. So it's kind of the bare minimum. What's the bare minimum that I need to pay my bills? In this particular example, and this is, it's $2,600. Yours it may be more. Since he said he didn't care, ours is $4,000 a month. So that's what we need in order to pay our mortgage, pay our utilities, pay our food, pay our clothing, and then we decided with that, okay, well we also want a little bit extra. That we want to make sure that we can pay for so that we're not living right on the edge. So we said, when we met and we started doing this, we said we need, and my husband is not risk adverse at all, and he said, I want 6 months. Okay. So that's how we calculated ours. So it's very personal as far as what that number is. This was kind of the bare minimum. 8,000 is probably a good bare minimum if you live in a fairly modest house with not a whole lot of utility expenses or other expenses. Obviously, like you said, if you add childcare in that, that's probably a necessity that you're going to have to include in your emergency fund. So things like that is going to vary from person to person. All right. So I'm going to throw in, let's presume that we have a car and that we're paying a loan on that. So we have debt. And that's where this category is. It has a lot of different education loans is in here too. But we're just going to pretend we have a car loan. The average monthly payment on a car loan in the United States is $493. So that's what I'm going to use for my number here. I'm going to put in $493. And right off the bat, you'll see that we are no longer balanced. It says we are negative $493. So I'm going to take it where up here out of my goal, which is saving for my emergency fund. available, $52 available to put towards my emergency fund. That $8,000 is gonna take me 20 years now. So, again, this is our tool. This is where we can look at this and say, okay, now what do I have to do? Do I really need this, $15,000 brand new car that I'm paying $492 a month? Or do I need to sell that so I can take that $493 and get my emergency fund sooner? This is the kind of the power of the budget and what allows for good discussions about what to do. Because we never fight at budget meetings, do we, here?
What's that?
I can't remember any time that we've fought in a budget.
No, we don't fight.
Yeah, but we don't generally fight anyway. We're both the type of people, when we get angry, we just get quiet and go to another room, so. But anyway, so that's just kind of, again, that's kind of the power of the budget. So before I jump into every dollar, if you kind of, we all have these smartphones now, so I thought it was important to kind of show an app version as well and how that works. Before I jump there, are there any other questions, anything else you want to see?
On that Excel,
Mm-hmm.
and that, what is that, E16?
Yeah.
Or, what was it, D16? Is that a formulated cell there for that $52 already?
Yeah, so
I
what
mean,
it does is, so let's say you're saving from multiple things, it will sum, it'll sum them all, we'll just put a number in there, and it'll start, and it'll
Okay.
start adding it up.
Gotcha.
All right, so, and this is the online version of every dollar. And what I did is, I just I started populating it. I didn't fill it out all the way just to have something for an example. But really, you would go through this very similar to the paper, and I'm not going to go through every single one like we did before. But if, so in the case of, if you've gone through and you know for a fact you want to put $350 towards your emergency fund, you just click on that row on the online version and type in 350 and enter. No, actually, in this case, you click at it. And it'll start up at the top, as you can see. It'll deduct it for you. So it's doing the math as far as what you've planned. And you can see this says plan. So you would go through in a similar fashion, and you would add, and you can see the categories are actually very similar, and you just continue to add. So if you had $150 that you're paying towards cable, and again, that's another area you can free up money, and get rid of cable and free up some money for whatever goals that you're trying to go for. And it will continue to deduct that. On your phone, what you see is actually very, very similar to what you see here. Main difference being that this window is is basically just a separate screen. So after you've figured out your budget, using this as a tracking tool is just as simple. In this, it has this bright orange plus sign as far as transactions are concerned. I think I have this on my phone, because one thing I saw is that this is a little not obvious. See if it'll open. This is not mine. Yeah. So on the app, you'll see that there's like a little, it's not obvious, that's why I wanted to show a little orange plus at the bottom, if this is the method you want to use to budget and track. But that's how you track your spending. So it's as simple as you click on the plus, maybe, there we go. And here it's going to pop up on the side, and I want to add a new transaction. And then you put in the amount. So maybe you just paid a bill, maybe you just came back from the grocery store and spent $100. It asks, where did you spend this money? I spent it at Kroger. And then that gets applied to my groceries. And then, oops. And then just click. Come on. Oh, I can just close it out. You can tell I don't use this very often. So what's nice is then this will tell us if I scroll down to food that I had planned $500 in spending, but I only have 400 left based on what I put in there. So that's just kind of how this works. For items like, I don't know if you're Sam's people, we love Sam's. I love the new Scan and Go app.
That's awesome.
It is awesome, no more lines at Sam's. But if you think about it, you can buy just about anything at Sam's. So it's not unusual for us to go in there and we're buying things that go in the grocery category, it goes in the clothing category, and then maybe even in the miscellaneous or household, or, it goes into multiple categories. Here, what they have, we'll just add a new transaction, they have something called where you can split your categories. So let's just say we spent $150 at Sam's. And then it says choose budget items, so I'm gonna first, we'll just start, inevitably you're buying some food, so I'm gonna start with groceries. And then it has here add split. So basically what it's asking is what's that other category, and we'll just do two. We'll just say that it's groceries and clothing. And then you'll see that it actually has a place where you can enter that. So let's just say we spent $100 here at groceries, and then $50 in clothing, and then close it out. And then you can see it will add that to, so it took another $100 off of groceries, and, oh, and I didn't add anything, so I'm negative. I didn't budget anything for clothing apparently, so I'm in the hole. So, but anyway, you get the idea of how the app works. So if you find that that's going to be the way that you keep track of it better is using the app, that's one option. Another option.
Does this sync with the online version?
Yeah, so this is the online version, and what you do is when you go online, you can either set up your account on your phone, or you can go online and sign up and get an account there. And then, so it's just a login. So you just, as long as you're logging into your account, what you see on your phone is what you'll see here. So this is nice, particularly for married couples, and you can sit down and you can look at your budgets together, but then you each have your own app on your phone that keeps on. And it should be one account, so you can kind of, what the heck? No, you could just spend a lot of money on clothes, or Bob, just, what was this?
I'm guilty of the hair care product. Spend a lot.
So, anyway, so that's kind of, I'm kind of half joking, but that's why my husband and I love our allowance, or we call it our bonus below money.
It was a long time coming before we did that.
Yeah, we really, actually, I guess we didn't start doing that until we moved here, so we've really only been doing that for the past 5 or 6 years, that we had enough income to be able to allow that. But,
This is not part of the Dave Ramsey plan, but he does it himself.
yeah, he does.
He
Yeah.
calls it Dave's money.
So, but anyway.
Live like no one else, so you can give like no one else.
Exactly, and that's very good, and that's what a lot of these principles are based on, Dave Ramsey principles. And this is actually, like I said, this is his app, which has come a long way. They've really done a good job with this app, I think, and to make it easy to budget. As a matter of fact, when I was preparing for his, Wyatt ended up with a form from, I didn't put this form together. This is one, like I said, from Freed Up Financial Living, because I could download it from their website. You can't download Excel forms from Dave Ramsey anymore. I used to be able to do that because they have, nah, just go use the app. I'm like, okay. But I like this because it all fits on one page. So